it's also great that we don't have a long laundry list of problems, where you can isolate one or two things like the red zone and say, hey, we need to be better here, and really drill down on it. And we're focused on that and confident we'll improve.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in to the Maize and Blue Reviews. Good afternoon, Michigan football. I'm Dennis Fithian. That was Michigan co-offensive coordinator Matt Weiss talking about what the Wolverines can do better, what they can do better overall to take their play to championship level. That's not exactly how he was asked. He was asked specifically about the red zone, and that's how he answered it. It's just great to be here today, getting ready to talk about this weekend. And if you pause for a second and just think about, if somebody just asked you the question, how are things going with Michigan football? Do you answer, what is your answer? Somebody asked that question to me. How's it going with Michigan football? It is going fantastic. It's going really good. Can I say great? Usually you like to save great for just like the really great things. But up to this point, being undefeated, heading into the stretch run with this game on tap Saturday night in Piscataway, and then Nebraska in Illinois, and then Ohio State, I have to say, if I'm just going where it's at today, and you're asking me how things are going with Michigan football, I'm going to say great. Things are going great with Michigan football, and that's a really nice thing to be able to say. Hey, think about last year and how much fun it was and everything for U of M to beat OSU and then go to Indianapolis for the first time and then go to the college football playoff, all of that. It was fabulous. And, the game against the Buckeyes will never be forgotten. But, U of M they weren't 8-0 last year. Remember, they lost to Michigan State. So where they're at right now, if we asked you that question a year ago at this time, you'd be sitting here after losing to Michigan State, be going, I don't know. I guess it's going not very good. You just lost to the big rival. You got Penn State, you got Ohio State. This thing is not going well. And but it is. It is right now. And, that's just where I'm sitting at. And what are we talking about today? If you're just joining us, let me fill you in. We are here live weekdays at 1:00 talking about the latest in Michigan sports. And we put it out to you, questions where you can get involved. You can ask your own questions. You can make your own points, and we put them up on the screen. Obviously, you have to be watching this live. You could reach me in a variety of ways to ask a question if you're listening to the podcast, and then I would use it on tomorrow's show. But I'm talking about right now. You can't be listening at 4:00 in the afternoon because we are live at 1:00. Sometimes I say, some of the really obvious things. That one's pretty obvious. But if you are watching live, we will take your feedback. Well, we are going to talk about what's one thing that U of M can do to take their play to championship level, knowing that this season so far is great. And you still can look at a team, and you can look at the Philadelphia Eagles are undefeated. They can sit there in Philadelphia. They got they're tied with the Astros in the World Series. They're sitting there undefeated in the NFL. The Eagles are, and you know what they're doing? Sports Talk in Philly. They're saying, hey, how can things get any better here in the city of Philly with the Phillies 2 games away from winning the World Series, and the Eagles, they can say, well, you go undefeated or whatever they're going to say. So we're just asking you about one thing that U of M can do to take their play to championship level. Yesterday, I got caught up talking about, Spartan sucker punches, and I didn't really look at the menu of games coming up on Saturday. We will do that, but we'll start talking about Rutgers, and we'll look at some statistics. Before we do that, I've got something for Uber Michigan fans to think about. Right now, you can get 50% off your first year at the Maize and Blue Review. You can get full access today. Use the promo code MBR1year. MBR1year. Go to michigan.rivals.com. All right, so Here's some of the stats as it applies to Rutgers as we look at the game coming up on Saturday night. It's going to be a 7:30 kickoff. Jake Butt, the former Michigan tight end, will be providing color analysis on the Big Ten Network. First time Michigan has played on BTN, and they'll have no, because they had Butt on one of their other games. It was the Hawaii game. First time in the conference season that Michigan will be on BTN and Butt will be there. And so you got that going for you, which is nice if you're a Michigan fan, Butt on the call. So that'll be cool. Looking at the statistics in the first 3 games, 4 games, 5 games, I wasn't looking much at the statistics, but I said that once Michigan gets done with playing Penn State, I would start looking at more of the numbers nationally and in the conference and everything else. And the tail of the tape, when it comes down to the numbers against the Scarlet Knights, things look really good for Michigan. U of M has the second-ranked offense in the Big Ten heading into this contest. Rutgers is dead last in offense, number 14. Defensively, Rutgers is a little bit better. They check in at 8th. That's in the lower third of the conference, but it's not dead last. Meanwhile, Michigan's defense ranks number 2 in total defense statistically. So Michigan looking pretty good at number 2, both offensively and defensively in the conference. These are just conference games. Vegas has this line at 26 points with an over and under of 45. I'm going to give a nod to Vegas here. Last week, I thought that line was a little funny against Michigan State, 23 points. I thought it was too high. And while it ended up being a 22-point victory, Vegas, you may have heard, they've got a lot of nice, tall, shiny buildings and all these gambling sites. They're putting out Barry Sanders and Jamie Foxx and every other actor and every other person out there, Shaq. They're all paying these guys millions of dollars. And everyone's like, I'm going to gamble and win. They're really good at setting those lines. So a little nod out to Sin City there. They've got this as Michigan with favored by 26. My first guess at the score, and I try to do this, but then I forget sometimes, and then I'm like, oh, there's the line. Oops. But if I don't see the line, I try to picture in my mind, like, okay, what would I put the Vegas number at? What score do I think it should be? How am I looking at this? And then when I see the Vegas line, I'm like, whoa. Or sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm thinking just like they are out in the desert. This game right now, at least my first guess at the score is I have Michigan 38 and I have the Scarlet Knights at 13. And if you add that up, that actually has the Rutgers covering that line by 1 point. Same thing that Michigan State did this last week. That's where I'm at right now. Maybe it'll be a little bit different when I move through it, but that's just how I'm thinking about it. I'll give you an official score tomorrow, but that was my first guess at the score, 38-13 for the Michigan Rutgers game on Saturday. Let me throw some more statistics at you. This is a nice stat. Michigan has given up the fewest sacks in conference play. That's good. Meanwhile, Michigan has sacked the quarterback the most in conference play. Michigan has given up 4 sacks. Meanwhile, they have sacked the opposing quarterback 8 times. That's a nice stat. You want to get to the quarterback and sack them. Meanwhile, you want to protect your own quarterback. And Michigan has done the best job if we're just zeroing in on the sack numbers, and we are. Michigan's the best at protecting their quarterback, and they are the best at getting to the opposing quarterback. That is a nice stat to have. You want another nice stat? I like this one when I was looking at stats today. Michigan and Ohio State are 2 of only 4 teams in the country with top 10 rankings in both scoring and offense and scoring defense. Scoring offense, scoring defense. Michigan and Ohio State are 2 of only 4 teams in the country that are in the top 10. Michigan's 3rd defensively, and they're 8th offensively. They're just giving up 11.5 points per game, and they are scoring 41 points per game. That puts them 8th offensively, 3rd defensively. That puts them in the top 10. Ohio State is in the top 10 as well. And the only other teams to appear in the top 10 of both categories of scoring offense and scoring defense are Alabama and Georgia. Folks, that's good company. Those are nice numbers. Those are stats that you want when you're getting into the stretch run. And meanwhile, I'm asking you what Michigan can do to take it to the next level. What's one thing Michigan can do to take its play to championship level? And for that, this is where we go to the people when I ask you the question, what can Michigan do to take their play to championship level? And for that, let's get to the coach, Antoine. Antoine, I don't know if you are a coach, but I've read enough of your feedback where at times, and I've gone back after the show, I'm like, I think Antoine's a coach. You talk like a coach, you write like a coach. I think you're a coach. That's my guess. Antoine today is saying he would like Michigan to go to 4 wide receiver sets like they did against Michigan State and have Donovan Edwards catching footballs running out of the backfield. Here's the advantage, according to the coach. It's easy to read coverages, and there's no linebacker that can cover Donovan Edwards running out of the backfield, and you would get the receivers more involved. The coach goes on, not to mention, we need to get these nitpicking fools that act like Michigan can't throw, but I understand it because Jim wants to play extremely conservative. Even though he can open it up, he needs to boat race these teams. Last week against Sparty, I believe he just ran and was content with putting up field goals. Antoine, there was a play in the first half against Michigan State where Donovan Edwards ran right up the middle of the field, and he did have a linebacker on him. Kind of faked to the left, went to the right. McCarthy put the ball on him, zip right up the field. I think, would we all agree? Yes, we all will agree that getting Donovan Edwards on a linebacker is advantage Michigan. And so scheming it up that way, I agree. I think Matt Weiss, he's watching this. He's like, the coach he's right. I think he's right. We like to see Donovan Edwards matched up against a linebacker. Andres, if Michigan can expand the play action game to more downfield shots as well as force more turnovers, this team will ascend to the next level of play. They are already fantastic. Go Blue. Part of, and I'm spoiling my own answer, but part of my answer is going to be where Andres is at. Talking about getting the ball downfield more. The captain jumping in and saying Rutgers is wearing white and Michigan is wearing question mark. I did see that Trevor McHugh from the Maize and Blue Review had a thread on the Den that Rutgers was prepared to wear all white, which means that Michigan could then do what? Well, they can't wear all white. They could, though, wear their home uniforms. And I know people like, well, how about maize and how about blue? How about blue? How about white? How about this and these trimmings? And I'm all, here's maybe I am a traditionalist. I like, but this makes me sound like, I don't know what it makes me sound like. Easy, maybe? But I'm going to say it anyways. This is the way I feel. I like all Michigan uniform combinations. I like them all. The one I like the best is Michigan's home uniform. So they could wear their traditional home uniform on Saturday night in Piscataway. And if that happened and they run out that way, you could say, hey, this is Fithian's favorite uniform combination, even though he likes them all. So let's see, Captain, what they do come out with. Here's Steven, who wasn't able to watch the game, or he had to watch the game on his phone on Saturday night. He answers the question of what Michigan can do to take its play to championship level, just being more successful throwing deep balls. Like where we sit right now, but it just feels like we're underutilizing some skill position talent. Oh, Steven, that's the direction that I'm going. Rutgers may be hoping the crowd noise will confuse JJ coming out with the different uniforms. I didn't think of that. I just thought like they would be like, hey, we can call whatever shot we want. So let's just take a vote. These are the ones we want to play. I didn't think there was a strategic move, Captain. I like how you're thinking a strategy when it comes down to the uniforms. I know, was it last year in the NBA playoffs, and did they may have made an adjustment on the rule? Like there were guys that would be on the end of the bench and they would wear like an all white t-shirt, and then they would stand up and like right over there. And a couple times guys, pass the ball over to them. I think maybe that they've had to adjust that. Maybe they put a rule in because it happened more than once. Jason, not sure what you did differently today, but you're looking great, buddy. Keep it up. I haven't done anything different today. I'm feeling good though. My mind is right, Jason. I'm feeling good about eating better, exercising more. Oh, I do okay in both of those, but not as well as I need to, obviously. But I say obviously for those of you that are taking a look at me, but I'm in a good spot. Sometimes, being in a good spot is you always want to be. We're not always in a good spot. Today, I am in a good spot. So thanks to you, Jason, for that. Beating OSU 2 years in a row is all I want for Christmas. Gerald, I'm even in a better spot now after reading that. How about that? Account 22's one thing that Michigan can do to take its play to the championship level. Let's get that pass game going. So I see a theme: pass game, pass game, pass game. And I do see some scores. Account 22 pointing out that Rutgers got blanked last week. Gerald wants to see that downfield passing game and red zone play. Red zone play, I'm surprised more people did not say the red zone. Because, Michigan scoring touchdowns in the red zone is definitely something that you would like to see them do more of, not having to settle for field goals. Having said that, the last 2 weeks, Ohio State against Iowa and Penn State, they've had 5 such instances where before all season long, they would only get into the red zone, and twice they had to either settle for a field goal or they didn't make it. I think they settled for 2 field goals. But in the last 2 games, 5 times, they did not get touchdowns in the red zone as I'm watching them. So prior to that, it's like, wow, man, Ohio State is a machine. Michigan's definitely going to have to pick it up with their red zone touchdown efficiency if they want to hang with Ohio State. And then Ohio State completely fell off the last 2 weeks. But if you want to win a championship, if you wanted to say, if we were already previewing Michigan, Ohio State in the big game coming up with both teams being 11-0 and it being November 25th, and we'll be sitting here talking about it and say the team, when they get it into the red zone, being able to hang a 7 instead of settling for a 3, that's going to be a big part of this game. And if somebody came back and said, if Michigan starts scoring in the red zone, they'll be able to put up 50 points on Ohio State. I agree with all of that. I think that is going to be the big talking point. Certainly going to be one of them. And I do think that Michigan can score 50 points on Ohio State if they're getting into the red zone and they are cashing in. Let's go, Gerald. Gerald's on top of it today. Feeling good with his feedback. Tyler thinks Rutgers stacks the box like Indiana and makes JJ beat him. And he will. That's a good point, Tyler. Jake Butt said that last year the Scarlet Knights brought both safeties. If you're bringing both safeties and putting them in the box, then if you're JJ, you're looking out at one side to Ronnie Bell. You're looking at the other side of Cornelius Johnson, and you're looking down the field, and there's nobody there. There's nobody there. Somebody mentioned play action. Yeah. Deep shots. That can happen. Deep crossers. Taking the top off of the defense because there's nobody back there. Go ahead. And Rutgers, they do have to pick their poison. And they keep their safeties back there. Michigan's going to kill them with Blake Corum. Blake Corum will run wild. He'll go for 200 yards. Donovan Edwards will be getting matched up against linebackers. So they do have to pick something. So walking your safeties up there at times sounds like and Macon McCarthy, because statistically is at 4 of 18 on deep shots, whether it's 20 or 25 yards or more, something like that. So if you're looking, and they are looking and thinking about, what kind of chance do we have? Well, they got to stop the run. They don't do that, the game's over. So they're thinking, well, let's stack the box and make McCarthy beat us with the deep throws. That's their shot. That's what this game boils down to. We'll see if they'll be able to do it. And it gets me to answering my own question. And it takes me right to where everybody else is at. What's the one thing Michigan can do to take its play to championship level? Pass protection. Pass protection. Now, when I say pass protection, and you go back and say, wait, didn't you say Michigan's doing the best job in terms of protecting their quarterback? They've given up the least amount of sacks in the Big Ten. I did. So it may sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, because Michigan has done that. But there are more things, and I don't have every one of those numbers about how Michigan has done in terms of a clean pocket, rushes, quarterback hits, hurries, those kind of things. I don't have those numbers. I do think Pro Football Focus, did they do it in a college game? And maybe I need to dig in and see if I can find some of those. It'd be interesting to see where Michigan is on that. But as I mentioned yesterday, I was talking to a former Wolverine who was on the phone with an NFL scout this week and a current college football head coach. And they were discussing Michigan and just how well that they've been playing and, how things look and everything. And then they had mentioned that to be able to get the passing game going better in getting those deep shots, because J.J. McCarthy, we have seen enough. You know what he does really good? The ball goes back to him. Boom, getting the ball out. That's why he's so good with completion percentage. McCarthy can get the ball, and he gets it out quick, knows right where it's going. Bam! He's done a great job. And then we all know that he has missed a few, and that they would like to get the downfield passing game going more to be able to take it to the next level. If the pass protection can hold for an extra click or two, these guys that coach, scout, and have played the game said that that's what they think it is. So it makes a little bit of sense to me. Now, if I would look at all 18 of those throws that McCarthy had, some of them, just thinking about in my mind, because he overshot. How many did he have against Maryland and Iowa? The ones that I'm thinking about the most, where it felt like he had a clean pocket, and yet, he overshot his receiver. So I'm not saying every single one of these guys, hey, well, what about this? He looked like he had his feet set. Sure. That's what these guys were saying. And it makes sense to me. If you can get a cleaner pocket and you can give the quarterback just that little bit more of time. And that's when somebody mentioned play action. I mean, the whole thing with play action is if you are running the ball and then you fake the run, those linebackers, those safeties, it freezes them for you. You just need, it's the amazing thing. It really is an amazing thing about football. I was watching a cut up of Joe Burrow a couple weeks ago when he had Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase had 2 games back to back where he was just going nuts. He's just crazy crazy play by one of the great wide receivers in the NFL, but they were breaking it down where, it was just one of these things like, they were on the left shoulder and it was the other guy took one step in the wrong direction to give Jamar Chase just that much room. And then Joe Burrow was like throwing the ball like right in there. It was amazing stuff, but that's what level that you're talking about. If you can just hold a guy for one, not even a second, or a split second, you get a guy peeking or holding, and you just give that much room and that much time to be able to make the play. That's what we're talking about. So that's my answer, and it is pass protection. Stephen taking us to the next topic, which is the games this weekend. And you do have Tennessee and Georgia. Stephen saying he wants Georgia to win 50-0. Well, if you're Michigan, I'm going to tell you this, Stephen, you're hedging your bet because my focus. And even though if I had to pick today, like I think Michigan is going to beat Rutgers, I think they're going to beat Nebraska, and I think they're going to beat Illinois. But if I had to pick today, I still think that Ohio State is likely going to beat Michigan. Now, I know that sounds like a downer. That is a downer. I do feel like, Michigan is got a good chance. I do think it's not impossible. It almost feels like every week that it feels more possible to be able to go down there and do it. But my focus when it comes down to, I hope these guys lose and that guy lose. My focus is Michigan going down and taking care of their own business. My focus is Michigan going down and beating Ohio State. And if Michigan goes down and beats Ohio State and then goes to the Big Ten championship, they should go to the college football playoff. I'm not already, even though I just said that, I'm favoring Ohio State in that game. So I'm already trying to get the one-loss teams. Yeah. Maybe, Stephen, just with your 1 point, maybe I should be thinking about that. But can't I make the case that if Tennessee wins, you want Georgia to win, and then you want Georgia and Alabama to play in the SEC championship game, and then you want Georgia to beat Alabama because that would eliminate Alabama. And if Tennessee gets to the SEC championship game and they lose to Alabama, both of those teams would have one loss, and it's certainly Alabama winning the SEC with one loss is going to get one of those 4 spots. Certainly Tennessee, if they go undefeated, they beat Georgia on the road and they get all the way to the SEC championship and they lose to Alabama, they are likely to get in with a 1 loss. So there's 2 spots right there. And if, as we are talking about, Ohio State goes undefeated, they get in there, then there's the 3rd one. So now who are we talking about with that 4th one with 1 loss? Georgia, in this case. Oregon. I mean, there's a lot. You got TCU, you got Clemson. It's more likely than not that if Michigan has 1 loss, that they are likely not going to be one of the 4 teams. Now, there's a lot of football and the play and how you do in the game that you might lose and how the other teams do in the games that they lose. I mean, those are things that are going to be important along with your strength of schedule. At least that's what the committee says. But so I hear you. I do hear you. But this is a dandy. 3:30, Tennessee, number 1 at number 3, Georgia, in between the hedges. I can't wait for that one. Illinois, who Michigan is going to play in 2 weeks, they'll be taking on the sucker punchers of Michigan State. 8 men out for the Spartans. Let's see if they look like any semblance of a football team. Let's see if they put up any fight on the field. We know that they like to get outnumbered outside, off the field, that they can outnumber you. And they can operate that way. They're a little dirty team Let's see how that dirty team does on the field, lined up against number 16 Illinois on the road. And then Bama. This game, Alabama and LSU, this was one that for about 10 years, it was appointment, college football appointment watching. I mean, you had to get out there and you had to watch Alabama and LSU. You just knew all these guys. It was just like, wow. And a lot of times the games be like 12-7 or something. They were for a while. Like the first, I don't know, 5 or 6 years of that 10-year window where it was the top matchup in college football, the appointment viewing. The first 5 years or 6 years, it was like 12-7 all the time. And then both teams were like, we're changing. We're going offense. We're flipping this thing. And then the game started being like 45-44. So, it's still enough where it's carrying, where you get to tune in. It's a night game. Baton Rouge, LSU coming off their big win against Ole Miss. I like their quarterback. I don't feel like maybe he gives them a shot in this game. 7:00. And then we get to Rutgers and Michigan. I want to talk about the last 2 games Michigan played against Rutgers. Last year, Michigan beat Rutgers 20-13. They were up 20-3 at the half. And then Michigan came out and had 4 3-and-outs in the second half. 4. Their first 3-and-out, they got into Scarlet Knight territory and they faced a 4th and 13. And Jim Harbaugh ran the ball. Josh Gaddis, whoever, called a run on 3rd and 13. They came up short. Boo! And then 3 more 3-and-outs. It sucked the life out of Michigan Stadium. They didn't score a point in the second half, and they had to hang on to beat the Scarlet Knights. And they were able to do it. They got the W, obviously. But you weren't sitting there after the Michigan-Rutgers game thinking, this is a special Michigan team. You were thinking, how about cranking it up a little bit offensively, Jim? How about, getting a little bit more going than running the ball on 3rd and 13? That's the play call? You guys are lucky that you won that game. That's what a lot of people were saying, myself included. But, they did. And, then you kind of forgot about that because the next 2 games were road games, Wisconsin and Nebraska. And they won those games, and then you start feeling a little bit better about the Rutgers almost nightmare. The year before, so that had been 2020, the last time Michigan was in Piscataway, that was a night game. That was one of only, 2 games that Michigan won during the pandemic. They won the opener against Minnesota. That was an awesome game. It was everything, and waiting around, not even knowing if they're going to play football, and then they do, and the pandemic, and all hell's and then you get to play football. It's like, oh, football, and then Michigan beats Minnesota. It was awesome. Now, yeah, it fell apart the following weeks and all that, but then the game against Rutgers is where Cade McNamara came in for Joe Milton and showed just what it was. It was Cade's finest performance. And with 4 or 5 touchdowns, he was making plays. He was savvy. He was spreading the ball all around. He was awesome in that game. Shout out to Cade McNamara. That game was, though, tough to watch in the second half because it looked like Michigan was going to lose that game. And they hung out a lot because of how Cade McNamara played. But I just think about these last 2 games, and a lot of people want to take and I understand, pandemic year and say nothing matters. Nothing matters. The weird outcomes all over the place. And Michigan won that game. Cade came in and was fabulous. It's still, that's the part I just want to say. It's not, doesn't really mean anything. Cade's, I don't even think he's going to be available. I don't think he's going to be available on Saturday. So I don't even think he's going to make the trip. But that was a great moment for Cade McNamara, Michigan getting that win. And then last year, I just remember the frustration of the second half 4 3 and outs, and Michigan having to hang on and their defense making a big play at the end of that game to win it. So should you be worried about the Scarlet Knights? I don't, this team seems very dialed in, very businesslike, very not worried about any trap game, not worried about any MSU tunnel hangover, not worried about, and they don't seem like they're worried about any of those things. And I don't credit Jim Harbaugh. He's good at getting his team focused and ready to go for the following week. Saying it's 100% locked that they'll win this game. Just think about that second half from last year. That's the part that, is sticking with me a little bit, but I like the way Michigan's playing. Like they are really good. And we're talking about some of the minor, fine tuning they can do. This feels like an open wheel race. And Michigan in practice, they've been zipping this thing around. They're ready to go. The night before, they're opening up the hood and they're just like tweaking this a little bit, bending this, maybe get a little more draft over here on the back, a little fine tuning. A little fine tuning. All right, we've got time for some more feedback, and let's go out there and take some of it in. Antoine, the coach, is saying people want to penalize Michigan for their non-conference schedule, but don't give credit to teams like TCU that have a hard-ass schedule. How's Alabama ahead of TCU? Yeah, Alabama, Antoine, I'll answer your question because Alabama is the name Alabama. And TCU is not Oklahoma or Texas, and they are certainly not Alabama. So as much as the selection committee, the chairman of the college football playoff will talk about, we're not looking at where teams have been or where they're going, and we're just looking at that's all BS. They are influenced. They're influenced by, they know what at large, if you say, who is the team that across the country is going to generate the most ratings and that people are going to be most interested to see, you might not like to say it, but the number one team is Alabama. And there's a group of other teams behind that have big time cachet, that have name recognition, that are blue bloods. Georgia is one of those. They say that it doesn't matter about who's returning and everything else, but it does matter that they're the defending champs and that they have a big name. That helps them. Brand helps you. Ohio State is in that conversation. You know who else is? Michigan. If it comes down where it can be, you get a bunch of numbers for TCU and you get a bunch of numbers for Michigan and it's a one-loss type situation, you know who's going to get in? Michigan. Michigan's going to get in. This first playoff, it looked like they went right down the line with strength of schedule for the top 5. You were on the show yesterday, you would have seen this. Here's the strength of schedule for week 9. And the top 5 teams is exactly how it came out with the college football playoff. Tennessee was 1, Ohio State was 2, Georgia was 3, and Clemson was 4, followed by Michigan. That's exactly how the strength of schedule lines up. Now, Alabama with one loss, but with a great strength of schedule and a big-time brand name, they were able to be up in front of TCU. If they were just doing it on strength of schedule, TCU should have been number 3 when those playoff rankings came out yesterday, but they weren't. They don't just do it on strength of schedule, but I have, just like you listen and watch and consume everything about college football. And Heather Dinich, just a couple of weeks ago, she was putting Oregon up there as a one-loss team, as one of her top 4 teams. You're like, what? She's like, the committee's really focusing on strength of schedule this year. Well, when you see it come out and it goes right down for the first 5 exactly by strength of schedule, you think that maybe Heather Dinich is putting things out there that she hears from the selection committee. She wasn't just randomly picking names out of a hat like she was accused of. That, strength of schedule is important, but it's not everything. Those things that they say that they're looking at, they look at the brand names. It's like the NCAA tournament, as we all say that we like the underdogs, and in the first day or two, we do all like the underdogs. They're like teams that we've never heard of, Coastal Florida or something, winning a game or two. It's great. Wow, this is awesome. Nice stories. St. Peter's, knocking down, slaying the dragon. Cool. But when it gets to the Elite Eight and Final Four, people want to see the Blue Bloods. They don't want to see. They don't want to see a team that they've never heard of going to the Final Four. You want the big names. And in college football, as much as Cincinnati got in there, people don't want to see Cincinnati. People want to see Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia. They definitely want to see those 4 teams. Who else? Clemson. I mean, previous to last year, how many college football playoffs has Clemson and Dabo Swinney been in? 4, 5, 6 in a row? A lot. They got pretty good cachet. As much as you're like, the ACC sucks and so does Dabo. Well, they do, but they got a nice profile. And they got a nice brand name. So if it can happen, it can happen. Steven's saying that he thought Cade was back to dressing again. I don't know. I didn't see Cade. You could be right, Steven. I'm just going to have to say I don't know. I don't remember him dressing against Michigan State. Maybe at home it's different. It would be like if you're dressing against Rutgers, that means you're traveling. That means you're able to play. Maybe he dressed against Michigan State because you can dress anybody you want for home games and have them down there on the sideline, but it's different when you're traveling. That's my guess without knowing fully what's going on. Gregory's saying there's good points, and Mel Tucker is overpaid. Go blue and use the fade in the red zone. Yeah, well, when you get a gigantic contract, there's going to be a lot of expectations that come along with that. So, saying that Mel Tucker is overpaid, I think is who's going to argue that? I don't think Mel Tucker's Mel Tucker. Hey, Mel, you guys have only won a game or two. You get half your team suspended, and you're probably going to get rolled this week. I mean, how can you justify your salary? You can just say, look, we're taking it one game at a time. But yeah, give him some truth serum and say, look, I've coached like a $9,500 man this year, not a $95 million man. But that's not how it works. It's they had to do it. They did it. And, that's that. Antoine says Clemson's been struggling all year. In fact, they had to pull their starting quarterback out and put the backup in to beat Syracuse. Well, that's true, Antoine, but they have a better strength of schedule than Michigan. They are undefeated, and they do have all those little blue blood coach things teams want to see, so they have that going for them. Once Michigan gets out there and plays Ohio State, probably will jump in front of Clemson. Hell, Notre Dame could beat Clemson. I'm not too worried about it coming down to if it's a one-loss Clemson and a one-loss Michigan. I think Michigan will jump over Clemson in that situation. And Michigan's undefeated. They're definitely going to be jumping in front of Clemson. Michigan's undefeated. I mean, they beat Ohio State, and then they win the Big Ten. They're in. So, fun to talk about. Michigan versus everybody. So that's account 22. There you go. Hey, look. Selection committee living in the past. Michigan benefits from the playoff committee living in the past. Like, the brand of Michigan has a lot to do with their past and their tradition. So it's a good thing. Michigan's right there when it comes down to that. Gregory is saying Michigan is not an elite football program quite yet. Need consistent wins over rivals. They are an elite basketball program with a good football team. Go blue. Greg, 87 alum. Yeah, I will say that you are correct, Greg, that, like if we're talking about for stamping Michigan as elite today, I would agree with you. They are having a great season, at 8-0. If they beat Ohio State and then going back to back, considering it would then feel like the seal has broken, that the worm has turned, that Michigan under Harbaugh, has solved Ohio State, and that I think they talk about them being back an elite football program. I think at that point it will be justified. But yeah, they have to now, like we've been hedging around, if there's some way, even though there is a way, but it's not probable that if Michigan loses to Ohio State, that they could still get into the college football playoff. If they did that and then won, obviously they won the championship. You can then say they're elite, but they somehow were with one loss and got into the college football playoff and then made it to the championship game. I would say that, that they were elite. If they have one loss and make it to the college football championship, are they just then stamped elite 2 years in a row? College football playoff? I'm gonna feel like I'm gonna say yes. But you're right. They're not quite the elite football program yet. Is basketball elite? What's the cutoff on basketball? I think basketball, there's like 4 or 5 like true like blue bloods, and then Michigan's in like another a cut below that. That's how I feel about that. I'd have to go through them all, but Carolina and Duke would certainly be sitting there as the obvious blue bloods. Kentucky, I think, would be, even though I know they got popped last year early, they would be on that list. Who else? Anybody besides Kentucky? Kansas? There's 4. Is there a 5th team that you would put in to the conversation as elite blue bloods, along with Kansas? Nobody in the Big Ten, like nobody's won a championship for over 20 years. Kansas, North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky. And then I'm going to put them at a tier, and then I'll go to some others. And I think Michigan's in that next tier. Is it the same kind of tier of college football? Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, and Clemson. Clemson had one off year. Prior to that, they were looked at. So do you want to put Clemson in the elite company of college football? Antoine doesn't. The coach doesn't. Are there 4 blue blood elite teams in college football, and are there 4 in college basketball? Without me, you want to entertain another team there either way? Do you want to put Michigan in either of those? Want to put somebody else in either of those? Gregory, I agree with you here. There is a 5th one. Nova. Yes, sir. Jay Wright's gone, though, isn't it? Did Jay Wright retire? That's weird. I might keep an eye on Villanova. I mean, you're a lot of what you have to do is going to be, with your head coach. Villanova, no Jay Wright. How about with Duke? No Coach K. Like they're doing a really good job recruiting, but is that going to continue? Like you don't have Coach K anymore. Maybe it's not going to be Duke and Duke and Duke and Duke all over the place. Maybe some of these great grandfathers like Jim Boeheim and Tom Izzo. Maybe these guys will be retiring. Tom Izzo wasn't retiring anytime soon. If Jim Boeheim's 77, like Tom Izzo could, if he coach for another 10 years. Is Tom Izzo going to coach for another 10 years? He could. All right, so there's 5 in basketball, 4 in football. Michigan is a blue blood, but you got a lot of Michigan haters out there. I don't know, Antoine, in football or basketball. They're like the elite. I know, blue blood and elite. Blue blood, you kind of put in like the tradition, the brand, and for that, Michigan is a blue blood. But are they an elite football team? No, the 4 teams that I mentioned are. But if they get into the college football playoff this year, I'm ready to put them in the group. A little bit of difference between blue blood and being elite. And we've got 5 college basketball teams as being elite. In the Big Ten, are we, Michigan State, Ohio State, are we ready to put any of those teams up in the blue blood category or elite category? It seems like there's 2 things there as we get through it. Clemson is not a blue blood, but are recently elite. There's Jesse. We're second tier, not elite. Gerald wants more 5 stars to be elite. We're on the doorstep of being elite again with Jim comes off that BS. I think you mean when Jim comes off that BS. BS, you mean like BS as in throwing the football and not being so conservative. And Jim's like, Antoine, do you like winning games? You don't like my philosophy of how I'm rolling here? Because this is how I rolled when I was with Stanford and was having so much success. And this is the way that I like to play football. And this is how I think that Michigan's going to beat Ohio State and get back to the college football playoff. And you want me to throw every down? No, I don't. Antoine wants you to use your talent, and Antoine thinks that you can just do more. And you know what, Jim, I think you can. I think you can too. And if you want to get great 5-star players, sure, you're going to have to start paying them like some of these other teams, select players. And if you want to get great wide receivers, don't you have to, along with winning all your games and getting back to the college football playoff, can Michigan smash mouth their way, ground and pound their way to being an elite college football program and recruit elite with being smash mouth? And look, if Michigan smashes their way on the ground through Ohio State and to the college football playoff, and they go out there and they're offering all these fantastic wide receivers, and they're all, I don't want to play at Michigan, they only throw the ball 20, then I'm all right with it, Antoine. I know we want it all. I would like Michigan to smash everybody on the ground, use Donovan Edwards, as this great feature out of the backfield. I'd like JJ to start throwing the ball deeper, and then Michigan winning all of their games, so then they're able to go out to anybody in the country. Hey, to play in the NFL on the offensive line. You see what Ryan Hayes and Trevor, come on in. You're a great offensive lineman, should be at Michigan. Certainly, if you're a great running back, you should be at Michigan. Oh, yeah, tight ends, this is tight end you. Quarterback, you want to throw the ball? We're going to protect you with a running game. We're going to get you all the great, all of it. I don't know. Now I am just talking. Now I am just talking to talk. That's what I'm doing. All right. Somebody's talking about Todd. Let's see what Todd's saying. LOL, Todd. San Francisco was winning the Super Bowl before the power outage. So what is Todd saying? Is he dogging Jim? Oh, here's Todd. Stanford, San Francisco, San Diego never got to the top level. Well, the thing about San Francisco is, they didn't win the Super Bowl. That is true. And the year before, they got to the NFC Championship game and had a little snafu on special teams. That Michael Robinson, was that his name? Got to play quarterback at Penn State, was on special teams, botched something on special teams, or San Francisco would have went to back-to-back Super Bowls under Harbaugh. They didn't win it. But getting to the Super Bowl, the one thing about Jim Harbaugh is that he could have stayed in the NFL after he was done at San Francisco, but he did what no other coach in really the history of football has done. He was a Super Bowl coach with an outstanding record in a short time of 3-4 years there at San Francisco, and he went to college and turned down the pros. Guys don't do that. Nick Saban, when he won at LSU and went to Miami, flamed out at Miami, so he went back to college. Nick Saban didn't do great in Miami and then, like you take them to the playoffs, get all the way to the Super Bowl, and say, now I'm going to Alabama. Nobody in the history of football. That's why when you talk about Jim Harbaugh, everybody's like, Jim's weird, and Jim has done it differently. Jim is different. He is he's an outlier. He is as much as these coaches and everything else, he did it differently. And now he's doing things differently with how he's trying to get Michigan back to elite status in college football. He's trying to get Michigan back to beating Ohio State consecutively, where he's trying to go back to Indianapolis again and get to the college football playoff, and then this time maybe win a championship. That's what's going on. That's where we're at. That's what we're talking about. Thanks so much for watching this show. I want to remind you one more time that you can get 50% off 1 year and the Maize and Blue review. Go to michigan.rivals.com. Use promo code MBR1YEAR, MBR1YEAR. And if you're a Michigan fan, you're looking for a gift for somebody, I've got it right here. This is it. Of course, I like every like, comment, and rating when it comes down to podcasts, the cast, and all of that. That helps us out as well. Those things are all appreciated. Tomorrow is a football Friday. Nothing better in the fall than having a undefeated football team head into another game on a football Friday. I am going to be, like I said earlier, I was in a good spot, feeling pretty good. Tomorrow, without even knowing what the rest of the day, I'm going to go to an oil change. What else do I got to do? That's it. But, Jason, I can tell you right now, tomorrow at 1:00, I'm going to be in a great frame of mind. It's Football Friday. Until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow at 1:00.